you're so blessed that, you've got so much of your dad's writings
Yeah.
and, wrote a book and the whole Bible story, man, that's just blows me away.
Well, that's a
And,
that's a good. Let's pause real quick there because you and Henry share a similar position in modern day contemporary society, and that is, your father's legacy, and not only in the world of World War II, but in these particular miniseries. What would you do if you're in Henry's step? What would you do if you're in that position where there was a George Luz Bible that Congress, Library of Congress said, "Hey, why don't you ship that bad boy out here?" Would you quickly do it, or would you hold on to it for a while?
but anyway, you, on the other hand, you've got all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I was really fortunate in that regard, and I think some of that kind of had to do with the fact that both my older brother and my dad, they were really interested in historical things, and so like perhaps maybe a piece of equipment or a bayonet or something that maybe an ancestor had carried through the Civil War. We actually had some of that stuff. And my dad and my brother were always really into history. And so, which of course, I mean, my father bringing his things back, that was just his own decision, as he was returning home from the war. But I mean, I've always considered myself so lucky that I could look at those things and like his combat pack.
Yeah.
When I spoke in New Orleans in November, George, and you saw the video of it, and so did you, Don. I mean, I took my dad's combat pack over there and laid it on the table in front of us, and you can't see it too well in the video, but I mean, the pack he carried through the entire war, and if you turn it over, the inside of it, what would be against his back, you see, it says Sledge EB. K35, and then a geometric symbol for the 1st Marine Division. And it's just, I mean, those are, to just be able to lay your hands on something that was there.
Yeah.
It's just, man, there's something so visceral about that.
Yeah.
George, your father's story is very reminiscent of Shifty Powers. He got to go home, was put on a truck, got in a truck accident, and landed up in the hospital. And by the time he got home, all his belongings were gone too. Very similar. So poor Shifty didn't get anything either.
The answer to that is don't get injured at the end of the war.
Well, and you say that perfectly because anybody who's read the books, I think the time that from the surrender until people got to go home en masse, they're saying like almost just as many guys are dying in car accidents, drunk driving accidents, accidental discharge. Like after the war, people were still dying from just happenstance and tomfoolery. I mean, we all heard what happened to Patton, but it was happening all around just because you have that many guys there, alcohol, good times and bad accidents. We're not talking about, anti-lock brakes. Most of that stuff was all drum brakes, no power steering, and just technology in and of itself wasn't as safe as it is nowadays. Let me ask you this, because one of the huge differences, I mean, there's a lot of them, but one of the differences, and primarily because of when it was made, at the time of the production of Band of Brothers, so many of the guys are still alive, and they were able to do those pre-episode interviews, which for a lot of historians, that was one of our favorite parts of the episode. I love opening up. And when you first watch the series, you might get annoyed that they don't put the little name down there, but if you watch that series enough, you get to know there's Malarkey, there's Shifty Powers, and to this day, I see the photos of guys, I know who they are. You said earlier, because you had started going to the reunions at such a young age, what was it like for you by the time that miniseries came out to see these guys that you've just known forever, whether they had the generic nickname of an uncle or a friend of my dad's? What was it like to see them doing these pre-episode interviews when that series came out?
Well, that was like you said, that was my favorite too, was to hear it in their own voices. The actors all did a spectacular job. They did an amazing job. And, kind of growing up around those guys and, and knowing them all very well. And when my dad was killed, I got to really connect with them at a different level. I wasn't Luz, but I was Luz's kid. And, it really chokes you up now, especially now that they're all gone. Fortunately enough, those kids were still connected, whether it's the Compton kids, the Carsons, the Langlois, Chris Langlois,
Yeah, yeah.
the Gordons, the Garniers, and on and on and on. And so it's good that we're able to kind of stay connected. Actually, before I was kind of getting set up, I had the tape of Walter Gordon being interviewed by Stephen Ambrose as they were leading up to writing the book.
Wow.
What Ambrose did was he got together with several of the men and did interviews with them because they lived in actually the same community. So I listened to that, and I'm sure it's great for you too, Henry. Is you've got tape on your dad. I was watching some of it this past week. You've got tape of your dad talking, and that's got to be very comforting.
It is, yeah, George. It is.
Not to mention his mother in the director's cut of the Pacific.
Oh yeah, man, that's a tough one right now. It's hard for me to hear her voice right now.
Yeah, but you'll be glad it's there 10, 15 years from
Oh
now.
yeah, no, I know.
And not to mention Henry's beautiful head of hair back then too. I mean, in that video, his hair was on point.
Oh, he had to throw that in there.
Well, we were all different. Mine is so gray.
Nah.
I start going gray at 16. Don't even worry about
it. Yeah.
Well,
but speaking of your mom,
yeah,
I want to read one thing about your mom. Well, I could read more, but I'd like to just read this because she's talking about your dad. And she says he had been through the worst that life could have thrown at him, and he knew that he was able to stand up to it. Which, when I heard her say that, I had to write it down because it was just, it was a great quote from your mom.
Wow, man, no, that's powerful. I remember her saying that.
Yeah.
But did you? When were your parents married, George? I mean, were they? So like my mom and dad got married in 1952.
Okay.
So when my dad was going through, and I was born in '65, so when Dad was going through all that, he and my mom didn't even know each other.
Mm-hmm.
But they got married in 1952. So for you, were your parents? Did they get married pretty soon after the war? How did that shake out?
Yeah, because I was born in '56, so I think that they were born in. I think that they got married in either '57 or '58.
Okay.
Because my brother is 8 years older, so yeah, 57 or 58. No, sorry, no, 47 or 48.
Okay.
47 or 48. Now, we lived in a community, and so my dad's good buddy, sister. Now, so everything is so close, but my dad's good buddy, Tony, his sister ended up being my dad's wife, Dell.
Okay.
Because, back in the day, my mom's family had 12 brothers and sisters, and my father's side had 10. So they had a bunch of them. They were Portuguese. So,
yeah.
And I guess they had a lot of kids. But so they got married in 47, 48, somewhere in that range, because I was born in 56.
Okay, well, so you're the same age as my brother.
Okay.
My brother came along in 57.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
So
it's amazing how old we are.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. I say to myself, am I really 66? I don't feel 60. Well, some days I feel 66.
Yeah.
After working out at the ranch today, I feel a little 56.
This has been a Digital 410 production.